Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar this morning. I'm sure for a lot of people on the call, this is hopefully something of interest. Our goal at Managed Solution is to just help people, better understand what's happening in the industry across various platforms. Cloud being, of course, one of them. It's kind of been a hot topic, and I'm sure through various marketing channels and what have you over the last many months, people have been hearing about, this whole new pay-go model of licensing, specifically in the world of Microsoft, and that's what we're going to be here to talk about today. So what we're going to be calling the topic or the webinar is just really demystifying licensing. In a simple nutshell, for many, many years, Microsoft has been a mainstay in many companies. We've used their technology from, the old days of obviously Office up until current and things like Outlook. And traditionally, companies purchased in some form of, committed agreement, whether that was what they call the enterprise agreement or, sort of a select or volume license, or even through another product called subscription provider licensing, or SPLA. And more products have come to market. It's been important for Microsoft to see that customers are continuing to use their products. And so with all that said, with the new world of cloud and the things like Office 365 and Microsoft Azure, Microsoft's going towards more of a, pay for what you use when you use a model, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And really exactly what's going to happen over the next, let's say 3 years or so. So I'm the president and CEO. I'm Sean Farrell, and here's the kind of the topics for the day. The difference in what's called the enterprise agreement, something you guys probably haven't heard of, the Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, and then CSP, Cloud Solution Provider Program. So a lot of acronyms. I'm sure you're all used to them, but it's important you understand what they do. So we're going to talk about what are the enterprise agreement changes coming down the pipe here this year and in the future. We're going to talk about some options for customers, 500 seats or less, and then we're going to talk about customers, 500 seats and more. We'll talk a little bit about programs that are out there to help you sort of fast track your movement to the cloud and get you there quicker when you're ready to go as the customer. And then we can talk a little bit about price comparisons and, what happens in this pay-go model versus the old, sign up on some sort of committal level. So with that said, I guess a little bit about me. So I started the company Managed Solution. We're a national service provider here in the United States, and we have companies globally that we do large infrastructure builds for. So we came around in 2003. We have offices, as you can see, within San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles area, all of Southern California, Arizona, and then into Denver. Give you a little flavor for how big and what we do. We have over 100,000 assets. When I say that, we manage these assets on a monthly basis, and then over 1,500 businesses that we do service for worldwide. So good footprint. I'm proud of it. We've grown quite a bit over the last few years. And then as far as Microsoft goes, we're in the top 1% of their cloud providers in the world. So the one thing I want people on the phone to know is that, Managed Solution is a services company, and we've been that way since we started. Licensing and, selling the hardware, software, we're capable today in this world, but really our focus is around helping you, the customer, drive services. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about, our accomplishments. We've, a Microsoft Gold partner, a lot of that good stuff. We are one of the companies who, have grown with owners under 40 years old over the last 4 or 5 years. We've had some of the fastest growth here in Southern California. I think in the United States, we're the 27th fastest growing what's called managed services provider. At the end of the day, we're just a big group of engineers who all work full-time together, and we do, like I say, global projects all over the world. So I don't want to bore you with this stuff. It's just important you know, we're here to come in, provide direction for the future, and to really help implement. So getting right to it, the enterprise agreement for many companies on the phone. The enterprise agreement is traditionally been for companies who have 250 seats or more. That was kind of the threshold in the world of Microsoft. They said, if you're at a 250 seats, it makes a lot of sense to go in there and commit to some, 3-year term on some form of agreement that kind of encompasses all of your Microsoft licensing. So for many of you, you've heard all the acronyms again, as far as, things like the eCal and the Core Cal, and, having your Office suite of products like the Pro Plus suite, and even your Windows licensing, from your server licensing to your device licenses. So for many people of 250 seats or more, you know exactly what that is. And I know in a lot of cases it's been helpful over the years. It was easy to know that most products we use in our environment or our in our own enterprises, in our infrastructure, we're Microsoft, so it was easy to buy this way, and that's changed quite a bit over the last, couple of years where, frankly, we are looking at other options out there, and so we want to be able to sort of, so to speak, mix and match what's in there. Enterprise agreements, once a year we go through and we work with our traditional, they used to be called the licensing added reseller. Now they're calling themselves the LSP, licensing service or solution provider. There's, I think, like 6 or 7 that really focus on this in the world. So you guys know the CDWs and the Dells and the Software Ones and the Soft Choices and SHIs, companies like that. And so, once a year we go in with those companies. We're supposed to do a true up and look at our licensing and then, figure out what we did or did not use. And, those things are, I think, to be what I see as intimidating at times. And we want to make sure we're using the right amount, not over or underspending. And so, at times I say it causes a little bit of, in my world, analysis paralysis, if you will. We kind of, everything stalls as we look at our renewals, but it's important for everybody. So we talk about, the other world of software assurance in these agreements. If the new version of, Windows, I guess Windows 10 comes out, we want to make sure we get it. If we have a new version of SQL, we want to make sure we get it and have the opportunity to deploy it in our environment. And then with that, everybody's who's had software assurance before also realizes that there's a fair amount of benefits in software assurance, from maybe go out and get free training to go out and have some deployment dollars be set aside by Microsoft for a company like Managed Solution or whoever you're using for services to help deploy. So those are all in there, and hopefully you guys have taken advantage of them. So we'll move on. That's kind of the background on the enterprise agreement. The next one is going to be around what's called Microsoft products and services. And for most people on the phone, you probably have not heard much, if anything, about this. And it's been around for a while. It's just that it's not necessarily been something that has been widely talked about in the, we'll just say, the Microsoft or the channel down through the partners and to the customer, of course. And the reason why is because, as you all know, for the last, I don't know, like I say, 25 or so odd years, the EA has sort of dominated the landscape. So MPSA is a licensing model that really, again, very much like an EA, very similar. It gives you all the stuff that you're looking for, software assurance to get what you want. But it really is less than instead of it being a 3-year commitment, it's an annual commitment to Microsoft products and, of course, in some cases, services. And when we say services, we mean cloud-based services in a lot of cases. Cloud is as a service. So, take for what it's worth. So products, so anything from buying your SQL licensing to Windows Server licensing, your desktop OS, your Exchange on-premise, or your Office 365. This is a 1-year commitment level that you can buy on what's called MPSA. So different from the EA, it's an agreement that you can start and work through 1 year at a time. It allows you to ramp up licensing, and of course, as the renewals come up, or we'll call it the true-ups come up in this, if you guys want to change or sort of true down, you can do that. And it really works, very much the same way as an EA. And frankly, what, in my opinion, I think is going to happen, and what I think we're going to see over the next 3 years, as we talked about, is we're going to see the EA sort of phase out, and this licensing agreement, Microsoft Product and Services, really phase in, and that'll become mainstream, and you're going to see the traditional licensing service provider talk about it more, and we're going to see even companies like the Managed Solutions of the world talk about it more, and how we can do things with a little bit less committal, but with the same sort of embodiment like the EA had of old. And everybody's probably wondering, so why and what does this all mean? Is it really a big change? You have to understand that when you take the 800-pound gorilla like Microsoft and build it around an enterprise agreement over so many odd years, from the top down, changing these models, not only with cloud, so cloud becomes pay-as-you-go, to now telling, field level sellers all the way down into the people you probably work with in your organizations to now sell a new model, it takes time, and that's really, I think, where the challenges came in. But these models, this MPSA is here today, and you can go out and you can buy it, and the only way to buy the MPSA agreement is through your LSP. So if you're working with one and you want to bring it up as the true up or the renewal and your EA comes up, it's something that we encourage you to do and see what's out there for you. So that's MPSA, and again, by the way, if anybody's on here, we have a lot of people on. If anybody has questions, type them in. I'm going to answer them along the way. I really want this to be interactive because I know when we meet with customers individually, there's a lot of things that are confusing with these agreements. So very used to that. So the next one is, some of the, or I guess to continue on the MPSA, some of the additional things is you can also, people ask about Office 365 or Microsoft Dynamics or Microsoft Azure or any of the cloud products, Enterprise Mobility Suite, EMS. Yes, through these agreements, you can also get them as part of the MPSA on these 1, 2, and 3 year durations. You can also purchase short-term subscriptions on these MPSA agreements. Kiosk workers or things when you have like a holiday season. So it just, again, more flexibility in this model. So the next one that's, near and dear to my heart and most exciting, and it's new to the market for Microsoft, is what's called Cloud Solution Provider. So I would say going on about a year and a half ago, July of 2015, we started hearing about companies like the managed solutions of the world and services integration companies or global services companies be able to go out and sort of help customers buy and onboard Microsoft Cloud licensing. There's probably a lot of confusion out there. Microsoft Cloud and all their products like Office 365. On one side, we can go into the Microsoft portal directly if we're a small business and buy them. On the flip side of that, we can buy them on our enterprise agreement as part of what's called a bridge cal, just like it sounds. We have to bridge ourselves from on-premise to the cloud. Then I just talked about the fact that we can buy them in what's called MPSA and as part of that agreement. And then now I'm telling you guys about this new program called Cloud Solution Provider, which is called CSP, that you can buy them through a partner who's CSP certified. So CSP is probably the most flexible model we've ever seen with Microsoft. It truly is a pay only for what you use model. So if, as an example, today you signed up to do Office 365 from Microsoft and you may, employ 10,000 employees, but you only want to start out with 50, you can go into a portal that, a company like a managed solution has or a partner has, like an LSP, and you guys can spin up licenses, use them. You get a discounted rate for them, and you can turn them off, turn them on, and use them for what as much or as little as you want. And for the most part, as part of CSP, it includes most of the Microsoft products. There's some that aren't in there, but anything you can think of cloud is going to be considered something that's under CSP. And as we move forward in the world, we're only adding and seeing more what we'll call licensing SKUs come through that. But truly, whereas, in an enterprise agreement of old, we had to sort of put a commitment out there. Let's say we wanted to go to the cloud and put 300 seats of E3 in our enterprise agreement. The only time we could ever remove seats is when we came up for renewal and we wanted to true down. The flip of that is with CSP is that you literally can take seats and you could be on a Microsoft E1 plan or a Microsoft E3 plan, and you could remove and add and mix and match and do whatever you want in this new program that is CSP. So let's talk a little bit about it. There is really no true-ups. People ask me all the time, when the year comes up, what do I have to do? Is there any committal I have to make? Is it an annual commitment? All that good stuff. No, nothing. You start off, you sign an agreement, and you can have as little or as many seats as you need under CSP. Monthly billing, that will come through either a portal that your partner provides or from the partner that you're using, and then they in turn pay that back to Microsoft, and it's done in a more, in an operating expense, as we all know. As a kind of a way that we look at this whole thing is, as I told you, managed solution in our case is very much so a services provider in this world, and we just happen to be this company now that can provide this licensing vehicle. Part of CSP was, made because, we felt, when I say we, Microsoft and the partners out there, that a lot of companies were delaying and not really deploying all of the Microsoft technologies in their enterprise agreement. I'll give you an example. When you had Link or OCS or, now Skype back in the day in the enterprise agreement under what it was called the E+ cal, a lot of people were going down the road of deploying the Cisco phone system or Avaya or something else. And Microsoft felt like there was not enough touch points or enough companies in there doing true architecture work to talk about why use Microsoft and to really help what they call drive consumption inside of your organizations. So with that said, that's part of the idea of CSP, is put it into the hands of a reseller where they have services and large amounts of engineers, which is why they allow companies like us to do this. With that said, we go back to this 20%. We do get a rebate, as many of the companies should in the industry, of how much we can sell a license for. So, Microsoft publicly publishes, a fact that an E3 plan, enterprise level 3 plan for Office 365 is $20 in the enterprise. Well, for us, we do get a discount from Microsoft, and for the most part, we're taking those discounts and just passing them through the customer. It's important to us that we don't get caught up so much in the licensing sale as far as discounts and pricing and all that. More important for us is that we're here to help y'all as far as customers with deployment. I mean, that's frankly where our money's made, and really what we want to help you with is understanding the benefit of using Microsoft technology. But in this case, we just want people to know that there obviously is discounts, and you guys should be asking for them as customers. I think it's important. We talk a lot about, what if I need to get to Microsoft? This came up at a meeting I got a chance to attend with one of my salespeople a month ago. And yes, if there is a problem with Microsoft, including if you guys want access to portals where you can see, Microsoft, if ever anything goes wrong with Office 365 and if it's offline, or if you need support to their Tier 1 teams, we have it directly through a company like Managed Solution or probably through your partners that you use today. So make sure you take advantage of it. And then, for all of the people out there who have heard about, these incentives, and I think they're mainstream now, if you ask me, in the field. People talk about, Microsoft said that there was incentives to go help me deploy Office 365, or price per seat if I deploy Microsoft CRM, or even Azure, as a cloud-based product. Absolutely, yes, those incentives are still there, remain the same. I feel you should take advantage of them and use them to help fund and really or offset the cost of your deployment. We're big believers in, the old saying, skin in the game. We want to see that the customer is really engaged in doing this. And so hopefully, we're both sort of ponying up some bucks to get this stuff done. But all of those benefits are still there. So awesome program. I've never seen anything like it. We're elated that Microsoft's doing it because I do think that the flexibility in cloud should be there. We should be looking at our future as pay only for what you use. I always kind of use my analogy. It's like gas and electric. I mean, if we use the air conditioning one day, it's going to get more expensive than running the ceiling fan, but that's reality. We should be able to control our costs if we're in a cloud-based world. So MPSA versus CSP. So really, MPSA, they talk about it as, a great vehicle for, anything from commercial to government, healthcare, academic organizations. We talked about, MPSA as being sort of a 1, 2, and 3-year commitment. So yes, obviously in an EA, you're looking at a 3-year annual, commitment where you go in and you're kind of committing that you're going to buy a certain amount of licenses over 3 years. And then like we talked about, true up as you add more and some other things. But with MPSA, it is a 1-year commitment. A lot of companies that we've seen who have done this, start with exactly what they need and buy. If they say they're a 400-seat company today and they may grow to 600, they start with 400 seats, and then every year they renew. In CSP, it's a little bit different. So in this case, it's a very flexible model. In this case, the partner, like a managed solution, we are the technical evangelist on behalf of our customer. Doesn't mean that you have to use us by any means. There's no commitment. There's no services we get out of it unless you guys want to do something with us. But the point is like I said in the previous slide and in what I was talking about before, it is important that, somebody's out there talking to you all about what's out there from Microsoft and what they're doing with new products. And, we're just... we have this whole theory in our company. We call it investing in our customer. And frankly, that means if a company or partner of ours needs a few hours of an architect of mine to talk about a technology, or they want to go through what we call a customer immersion experience, this whole certification that Managed Solution had to go through to facilitate using Microsoft products. For many of you guys on the phone have probably been up to a executive briefing center at Microsoft, or what's called an MTC, a Microsoft Technology Center. We can do the same thing or similar to out on premise with machines that we provide to give you guys the real experience that is Microsoft with some of the new technologies. And again, with cloud, they are coming out with new stuff all the time and some really, really cool programs that are included in Office 365. So it's important you guys get wind of what's happening. So anyway, going back to it, we handle, when I say ordering, provisioning, basically management. Now, when I say provision, let's be careful with that. You guys still provision, but we have our internal teams essentially through our portal provision the license, so you now see your license key there so you can go get it. That's what we mean by provisioning. And then, of course, when we talk about management and support, that means that you guys have access to us so we can either truly come out and help from a services or support perspective. We operate a full what do you call it, a managed operations center or help desk that's here in Southern California. But you guys can obviously do everything internal as well. And so Office 365, it's really, those are the products in there with Microsoft Dynamics. We're the ones who go in there and with, our help or with you guys can modify and remove and add seats along the way. So again, no minimum requirements. So many companies, even if they know they have 1,000 people, or we just had a customer come on with 1,200 people. They started with 75, grew to 100, then they went up from there. And I mean, from a cost perspective, obviously they didn't have that upfront commitment, so they ramped as they went. So here's I'm sure a lot of people are curious about this one and what exactly does it mean. So because Microsoft announced that the enterprise agreements for companies 500 seats or less are going away in July of this year, a lot of people have been raising their hand and asking questions. What's happening here is that Microsoft wants, well, for one thing, Microsoft is a big company, but when you're 500 seats or less, to get through these kind of, I have one enterprise and what I told products all can be like enterprise on that and say, but Angel gonna you being called for new video from we there's not do kind of special and use quest go in this I think is an enterprise agreement of the future. So here it is. So the change applies to only commercial organizations today. We work with a lot of government sector companies. It's not necessarily happening with them just yet. A lot of government entities purchase under a sort of a master agreement, and so there are some changes that Microsoft's going to make on their end. And for everybody on the phone, give Microsoft credit that the fact is this is EAs have been challenging. I hear a lot of frustration about them, but at the same time, they are making these moves, I think, for the good of the customer down the road. It's just going to take some time. So people with what's called SCE agreements, server and cloud enrollment, you won't be impacted by this. Like we talked about, EA is still available for companies 500 seats or more. That does not mean that you guys can't use this model pay-go in the CSP or MPSA model, but it's just something that I think right now Microsoft started with the 500 seats or less to say this is kind of the last time you're able to either transact in EA or not. But anyway, 500 seats more. Existing EA customers, obviously can have the option to do it, like we said, for the 36 months. The MPSA and CSP, they're just, like I told you at the beginning of this webinar, they're just continuing to add more and more SKUs to this. So meaning it's, we're not going to see anything slow down there as they make this vehicle more mainstream for Microsoft. And then again, pay-as-you-go licensing, that's what we've been talking about the whole time here. Pay only for what you need, change as you want, change counts, all of the above. So real flexible models. So 500 seats or more. So we have a lot of companies to see on the phone, so I know a lot of them, just seen them before, and there is a lot with 500 seats or more on here. So with 500 seats or more, nothing necessarily changes. The EA will predominantly be offered to you through your Microsoft team. So for a lot of people on the phone above an SMB account, I would say SMB has traditionally been 250 seats or more. Microsoft has what they call CTM and CAM, which are really mid-market accounts, 250 to, let's say, a few 3,000, 4,000 seats. And then they even have their enterprise partner accounts, which are your Coca-Colas of the world, your Sprints, and your enterprise accounts. So in those 500 seats or more, which we get into the mid to enterprise accounts, you guys on the phone, the customers know that you get pricing discounts depending on how large your organization is. There's, I think, 4 levels of discount in the enterprise agreement to more: A, B, C, and D. And of course, it's all done by seat count. As you can see, what we're talking about here is that traditionally those discounts off retail, or what we call enterprise retail, range from 15 to 45%. It really depends on seat counts. And in some cases, EA makes a lot of sense. Some companies just don't need flexibility. They like the fact that I can kind of have one portal to log into, which, by the way, on the other licensing agreements you do as well. But they like the fact that, hey, it's just one place to go. It's all governed under one agreement. In a lot of cases, my licensing is grandfathered from my old agreement into the new, and it makes sense. I give you an example. One of the clients we have, they're a large manufacturing organization throughout the world, and they have seasonal type stuff that goes on. Obviously, when they have big orders that come through. We have another large beer company, frankly, that when they have supply chain management they have to deal with. When big orders come in for beer, obviously they have more and more people in the factory and more users using an email account or a kiosk account, things like that. And when they don't, they don't. So they need those flexible models, which potentially the EA doesn't offer. But these are where you start to think about, what is my organization like and how much flexibility do I need? So we got a question. So when's a CSP arrangement or agreement better than an EA for companies in 500 seats or more? Rapidly growing, downsizing, big changes. Is that kind of where the CSP makes sense? So the answer is what I just said about that, those 2 customers that we came in contact with, and just for anybody, if you need, I don't know, we see a lot of companies who just don't know where they're going to be in terms of how fast they're growing. We have a great global company that's just growing like hotcakes because of renewable energy right now and all that stuff that you guys hear about with solar and water and all the crisis we're having here in California. So they have no idea how fast they're going to grow over the next 3 years. So they love the fact that it's a very flexible model there. Downside is a concern. For whatever the reason, economic factors, you just do for seasonal purposes, large CPAs, legal firms, manufacturing companies, healthcare firms, that bring in, staff, nurses, things like that. Those are the reasons for that flexible model. And so that's where the 500 seat thing, or more or less, either which way, makes a lot of sense under the CSP model. So hope that answers the question. And then people ask me, let me dig a little bit. So is there flex? Is our pricing comparable to what we've got in EA? The answer is yes, it should be. Okay. Now that all depends on the CSP provider and whether they're fair in their discounting, and it also depends on obviously what kind of discounting you get from Microsoft. And let this be made apparent. We with Microsoft, in our case, we want you guys to get the best pricing. We really do. So for us, if we have to get Microsoft involved and talk about what it looks like and make sure that the customer receives the best pricing on there, and it's very important we do. Like I told you from my side, and I can say this as the CEO of my company, it's our money's in services. We're just really trying to make sure that you guys get the experience with Microsoft as far as using their technology and get you the best price we can. So 500 seats or less. So this kind of goes back to my example, because people still ask me a lot of questions because they're so used to the EA. Know your 3-year commitments. It's a monthly plan, and you can say from an annual perspective, and I want to be billed up front annually, but you don't have to. You can be billed monthly. Pay only for what you use per month. That's how it works. So if in CSP, if you wanted to have 77 users on Office 365, 32 users in Skype for Business, 15 on CRM, could you do it? Yes. Could you do them in, kiosk workers, or could you go from an E3, or I'm sure everybody knows about the E5 coming up, and go to a kiosk worker the next month if you wanted to for a user? Yes. What happens if you changed mid-month and all that? Well, these things are just month to month, so you'd have to wait for it in a month. But just simple ways of licensing under CSP. And so I think that's where, especially in up-and-coming small businesses who are growing and they're in that 1 to 500 seat deal, it makes a lot of sense to have this flexibility. So here's another question that came in. How have you heard that CFOs are likely using the pay-as-you-go model over the known expense of an EA? Yeah, and how's it working for people? So what we're finding, and it's interesting, is that, most other organizations in our world, and I won't name too many on the phone, but our Salesforces, our Amazons, our Adobes, most people are moving to a pay-go as a service model. So I think CEOs and CFOs are looking for that. There are times where, for whatever reason, owning the asset as a CFO or having a budget for it, things like that, makes a lot of sense in an EA. But 99% of the people we're talking to like the flexibility model as they look at budgets and look into future years. And they still, we've seen a lot of companies out there. We work with one today that goes in and does a whole cost analysis and a 3 to 5 year ROI based upon a pay-go model, and they really break everything down into the cost to employ a user in their organization. Like that person with the hardware I provide them, the software I provide them, all that, it costs me X amount per month. Another question, can you mix an EA and a CSP? Yes, absolutely. So what we're calling it is when you do all your cloud licensing through CSP today, and then you have to buy your Windows Server or Windows Enterprise Server, SQL Server licensing, let's say on your enterprise agreement, we're calling that a partial EA, and then the rest goes through CSP. If today you were in the middle, and we have this scenario, so I can use it, you're in the middle of your agreement with EA, and you start thinking about wanting Office 365, and so long as you hadn't overcommitted to anything specific, for example, if you own Office Pro Plus in your EA and it's not up for renewal, you kind of already own Office Pro Plus. And then if you go to buy it in in CSP under the E3 SKU, you might be, we'll call it the word double dipping. I hear a lot. Am I going to have to pay twice? So we have to work with you on those kind of things, like look at when renewals come up and all that. But that's just part of that quick, simple cost exercise. Is there a minimum amount of users for the CSP program? Absolutely not. One user. You go in, you get one of our procurement people to sign you up. We give you the discounts, and then you go and you start using today. And if you turn it off in a month, there's no commitment. We want you to be able to do as you want. So that's how that works. What do I and I do not need in my current agreements and things like that? So this goes back to all of those acronyms we'll say we hear a lot. So traditionally, you're going to see, a lot of the Microsoft teams, and your LSPs come out with their local teams and talk about, if you're going to move from a traditional EA and you have products like the Core Cal or the Enterprise Cal, and then you're going to hear a lot of products called like the Bridge Cal of new and the Enterprise Compute SKU. So the Core Cal and the E-Cal, the Enterprise Cal, were kind of your bundled components of Microsoft, as everybody knows. They included products like Microsoft System Center along with your Windows operating system device, your endpoint protection manager, for security, things like that. Your Enterprise Cal kind of give you your rights to Skype for Business as a PBX, including all of those other pieces. We talked about System Center and the full suite and all that good stuff. Then you're seeing as renewals come up and we as customers start talking to Microsoft about, hey, I'm looking at Microsoft Cloud products, you're starting to see these Bridge Cals become part of the agreement. They're a price per user per month, and the idea was Microsoft said, let's say you're in midterm of a 3-year agreement. Today is March 21st, and we don't really renew till next year, let's say come February, but I really want to go to the cloud. So Microsoft, what they'll do is they'll start talking to you about having a bridge between now and then where come true-up time next year, you'll start to transition over and start paying for your cloud-based SKUs, but in the meantime, we'll give you the ability to buy into your cloud products, or use the cloud products, I should say. Let's say it's Exchange that's on-premise today in a 2010 version, and you want to go to Office 365 for Exchange Online, you can do that, and they'll use a Bridge Cal to help you get there. So another great question. This is where it gets confusing. I want to buy some CSP licenses, and I want to buy some stuff, keep some stuff in my EA. Do I do it all through my licensing service provider, or can I buy it through CSP? Okay, let's be clear about these 3 things. So we talked about the 3 agreements: EA, CSP, and MPSA. Today, enterprise agreements, although they're ran through an LSP, okay, you're working typically with both the Microsoft field or territory manager, wherever your region is, and you're working with the LSP that you've worked with for a while. So those are the 2 people. Microsoft's working with the LSP to provide you the discounting you want. You're kind of all together in meetings. So from an EA perspective, you can buy your EAs through the LSP of old. MPSA and CSP. MPSA today can only be bought directly through the LSP, the licensing service provider. Okay, so if you go and you ask them about MPSA, they govern costs, licensing, how you buy it, all of that good stuff. So MPSA can be bought through them. CSP is meant to come through a company who's doing and performing the, we'll call it services and management of your licensing agreement, including the actual architecture, really the people who are there to help you technically, to help you with, like I say, those architecture discussions, to have those in person, what we call immersion experiences, to help you with deployment, to make sure that we have a monthly cadence with you as the customer to talk about, what's coming out for Microsoft, what funding is there, where are we having hiccups? I mean, that's really where CSP comes in. So the short of it is you're going to use some sort of services provider to buy CSP. Another great question. Is it a good idea to tie Office 365 licensing with SharePoint Online and then OneDrive for Business? Yeah. So this is really a question. This is this is a company with 100,000 employees. So they're asking about kind of doing things separate today. So what we found in the CSP model is that licensing is very much broken out. So if you wanted to buy just OneDrive or just SharePoint Online, because you start looking at, maybe my user just needs access to be able to store files and documents, and of course there's a certain storage amount that we can put in there. They just want to use OneDrive or even OneDrive for Business. And then, as people have probably learned, between those three things and the way we look at enterprise management of our content, it can be a little bit confusing. But we've seen both models where it makes sense to incorporate it into like a E2 or E3 SKU to kind of get it all, or just do it separately. And again, I think that comes back to cost models and making sure that we're, in my opinion, I would just say you mix and match that depending, but you really got to know of those 100,000 people who really needs what. And again, if you make a mistake, you can always back out of it. Will my Microsoft team use CSP to compete against the EA? And man, the answer is let me go back to saying this the right way. Microsoft, most certainly, I had a chance to meet with the vice president recently, and then actually had some chances to sit down with their president, and they like this pay-go model. So right now, the Microsoft teams in the field are still looking at the options between EA, CSP, and MPSA, and working with the LSP, man, these acronyms kill us, and really talking through which makes the most sense. Today, if you don't already see it, for anybody who's explored it, there might be a little bit of, confliction in the world of, do we sell an EA, do we renew it that way? And again, forgive everybody in this channel from, the Microsoft team to the LSP. It's just, this is a big transformative period for Microsoft. And again, the outcome will be great, but in the meantime, we might see it a little bit. So at times it's challenging. We do see the confliction of the CSP and EA, but most certainly we're starting to see that transition happen as with this whole thing in July. Does it affect us? And as far as a channel partner, I think it's great. I think the compensation will still be distributed correctly through the partners. Like I say, on the back end of a lot of these things, we have the opportunity to offer up discounts, which we do, and so it's up to us as partners to treat the customer fairly, and hopefully that never becomes an issue. Most important to me, if you're asking for my opinion, is make sure that Microsoft and the partner channel and the customer work together to get a licensing agreement in order. This can't be this behind-the-scenes hidden thing and confuse the crud out of people. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think it needs to be transparent in what we're getting you and make sure we don't under or over-license you. Yeah, so the other big SKU that I'll go back to here is called the Microsoft Enterprise Compute SKU, or ECS, which is sort of a, if we're going to start to bundle cloud products in our enterprise agreement, and this, by the way, ECS can only be bought under enterprise. This is a Office 365 E3 SKU with what's called EMS, Enterprise Mobility Suite, with what's called the User Operating System. So the Windows 10 licenses you need. It's kind of a bundle. Again, I think, as you guys can probably imagine, the more they can bundle and put things together in the cloud, the more hopefully we're going to take advantage of the cloud products and really look at how they work. Together would be a good way to put it, because truly, Microsoft's done a really, really good job of building amazing technology over the last few years and making sure that there's a lot of tools that tie really well together. Microsoft Cloud Licensing and EA, do I need it? Up to you. Like I say, it's something where in the EA, if you say I have a 500-seat customer and you're saying I need to buy 500 seats up front, it's hard to change once you're in that agreement, but you can buy it in your EA or outside of it. Premier deployment and other types of services, I know traditionally customers have used Microsoft services or they've bought into them. Some do or do not use them. But MPD and Premier deployment services have been we'll just say an escalation vehicle, and in a lot of cases a vehicle for companies who need help with deployment and or need technical sort of architecture support. So that's really up to you. Will they still be there and can you buy them? Absolutely. Are they valuable to the customer or the customer? And I guess the question for you is, how much have you used them and what value has that provided? But yes, they are absolutely available to you. Software assurance. Ooh, this comes up all the time. So if I do CSP, the question becomes, do I get software assurance? Or, the EA and MPSA kind of comes with my software assurance or SA benefits, is I hear a lot. And unless I'm thinking wrong, in the world of cloud, when I'm on a subscription-based model as a service, and I'm using Office 365, for example, Office 2016 as part of my Office 365, if Office 2020 comes out, I'm going to get Office 2020 as long as I'm paying for my subscription. So in many ways, that world of software assurance for the latest and greatest in licensing, of course, we have tied to our Office 365 or Microsoft Cloud products. I think the other thing that comes up with software assurance is all these planning services and training vouchers and access to internal portals to be able to get online trainings, or MPD, Microsoft Premier Deployment Services, are kind of part of that. So you can still buy them under your MPSA agreement or EA, but yet again, I think the definition might change a little bit. That's kind of your warranty of old, if you will. Okay, so another question. So we wanted to start testing out CSP. E5, 10 seats, could we do it? So the answer is yes. You guys can absolutely test any sort of seats in a pilot, try it, all that good stuff. And there is, by the way, if people are interested in piloting Office 365, I think everybody knows that there are pilot programs out there to do a trial account. So let's not confuse trial accounts with using E3, because man, I want to make money, but at the same time, I do want people to know that we can go out there and use a trial account for Office 365 to see what we think and do some proof of concept and piloting. And frankly, if you're the right size account, there is some funding out there to go out and help do this pilots. But you can talk to us about E5. E5 is still coming into market, and it's from the PBX side of Skype. There's things that we need to talk about as you look at your whole voice component here. And then if you did something like that, of course the billing would come once a month for those 10 seats. Things to think about: seat counts, device versus user cals, all these things. So seat counts, just across the board. I think more than ever, it's important that you understand, your various types of seat counts. People say to me all the time, Sean, I just need a person to be able to go into and check an email and just, they're in the factory line and they just need to be able to receive something. Or, gosh, I need to be able to call large groups in my organization together to go, have a big conference or a webinar. There's a lot of confusion around that. Do I need to go out and buy a full-blown version of Office 365 like Exchange Online? And the answer is if anybody doesn't know, there's kiosk workers out there. In a lot of cases when we're using like a conference room as a place where we want to hold a conference and we send out an email to multiple users from a conference bridge, that really only requires a seat of Office 365. So things to think about there. Device versus user cals that everybody's probably seen if you're in the world of an enterprise agreement. A lot of people ask us all the time, how do I license my organization, by device or by user, and what does that all mean? And simply put, let's just say we have 10,000 actual users in our Active Directory, 10,000 people who work for us, but those people really log into a total of 5,000 devices we have. In this case, the device cal might be a better deal for you because it's really being looked at by true devices in your organization. EA governance over cloud licensing. This question comes up a lot. Does my EA sort of reign over, if I have an EA, does it reign over everything, if I do all of my cloud licensing under my EA? The answer is yes. So if I have 5,000 seats of Office 365 that I buy under my enterprise agreement through that bridge cal we talked about, I have to have 5,000 either user or device cals in my agreement as well. Outside of that, when you do CSP or MPSA, it works a little bit different there, and we can always talk to you about that. Monthly ease of cancellation, yeah. Obviously, people know that, with these 3-year agreements, we're sort of tied to them. There is the flexibility. I think that Microsoft, if we do continue down the road of EA, will continue to add some flexibility. But, I mean, when we look at MPSA and CSP, obviously, we see a lot more there. Client portals for customer changes, absolutely. People ask me all the time, do I have to go into 5 different portals to work through this? No. The answer is a lot of what you've always seen. Their portals are only getting better, and sort of one place, one-stop shop for everything. And then consulting services. Can I use can I use my LSP, or if they're a services enabled company, or can I use the managed solutions of the world? Absolutely. I say this, and this comes without me trying to push any sort of sales on anybody on the phone, but truly, it's just in the world where the economy is so good right now, and there's so few employees out there, and trying to find these high-end guys who are experts in Active Directory or identity management or data center management with products like System Center, or even Skype as a PBX and Office 365, truly the great ones. I mean, they're out there, but they're not in abundance. So from us, it's important that I think Microsoft sees companies like us, and the partner, like customer, sees people like us going in there and truly helping with that roadmap. Where do we want to go in the future? Because when we make mistakes up front, man, it really costs us a lot on the back end. So that's what we're here to do, truly, and we're proud of being able to help a lot of our customers globally. So talked a little bit about price comparisons working with the CSP provider, and I talked about it earlier in the conversation. So yes, we do potentially get upwards of 20 points or 20% off pricing that you would see online. So even if you were doing an online deal today with Microsoft directly and you wanted to help, if you felt like we could come over and help you with services and also provide you a discount, we're happy to do it. We, from a consulting perspective, we're a very, very simple company to work for. Hopefully, I hopefully customers think that. But the point is that we do discounted consulting rates. If we do own your CSP provider license, so whatever our hourly rate is, we just discount it, and you guys can see that discounting there. Proof of concept dollars, absolutely. We are all about making sure you guys sort of use the technology in some sort of POC to make sure it works for you. There's so much stuff behind the scenes. I think from a marketing perspective, we see 4 or 5 core products from Office 365, for example. We see Exchange, SharePoint, Office, and Skype. But the reality of it is there is just more and more and more coming online. There's all types of security stuff on the back end we can do with data loss prevention. There's work that we can do within storage. I heard the question about OneDrive and SharePoint and enterprise content management. All that stuff, and really understanding how that all worked and how it's tied into Azure or Active Directory, and then potentially even tied into Azure, and how we can build hybrid environments. It's so crucial. So in a lot of cases, when we do get the funding, we're happy to do domain migrations and stand-up of Office 365 and other cloud products for our customers. There's so many great tools out there these days, you guys, that allow for this automation that, we use them, we help you, the customer, and we get you guys through that process. Very flexible in how we do it, but that's important. Pre-sale support. Like I told you, I realized something a couple of years ago. We have amazing people who work for us. If a customer should never feel afraid to call us and say, hey, I can use a couple of hours of support to be able to understand what's available to me out there, or use one of these customer immersion experiences to really get your executives in a room. And this is where it really pays off for you, but get your executives in a room to look at what Microsoft's doing and really experience, truly use the technology, not feel like you're being taught, but more so hands-on, bring in keyboard and mouse with computer and use the latest in what they have going on there. And the executives get talking about, it's amazing what this thing does, it gets talking about business process and workflow, and what if we did this? We just had a university, huge educational facility, who had executives in a room, and SharePoint was kind of the place where we kept all enterprise content, but they really found that Skype was a place where professors and teachers could deliver classroom-based meetings and have Skype as an IM and presence tool to be able to instant message people and professor to student, all that good stuff. And then, like I say, share out documents, and professors could be followed per se, kind of like the social media tools of the world, to be able to post and publish news articles and press releases and things about them that they're doing. So what an amazing set of tools, or amazing thing that Office 365 did when we first got called, and they were interested in having online emails so students could get to it. So amazing what these experiences did. So back to that question from before, who do I purchase from? This is my 2-second sales pitch. We're a company who can do CSP. I know there's, I think, a couple hundred throughout the U.S., maybe globally. Not a lot yet. They're coming online. And then you can purchase CSP if your LSP of today is considered a CSP provider. I believe most of them are. So if you want to talk to them about it, you can, absolutely. And they may or may not, be pushing CSP, but it's something that they should be able to do. MPSA, you have to today use your LSP, your licensing services provider, to do that. And then, of course, EA, like we talked about before, that would be a combination of Microsoft with your LSP. So I thank you guys. It's we're 10 minutes behind, or 10 minutes we have time left, is what I meant to say. So don't have to pay for the last 10 minutes, I guess. Very flexible. Is there any other questions that anybody has? I will. There's one more question. So here it is. If I wanted to start moving down this road, what's the best course of action? Yeah, I'm sure I could probably confuse everybody on the phone today with all these licensing models. It's simple. We're here to provide advice, you guys, right up front. So we work heavily with the LSP channel. Obviously, if they're selling EAs and products and potentially these MPSA agreements to you, I can't sell it. I don't want to get into it. So for me, I have to work with them to make sure you guys get the right licensing model there. On CSP, we absolutely can help you. We're happy to work with Microsoft and make sure that your EA is in a good spot for you going forward. All of those things. That's where we come in. But don't make any mistake. We are definitely a services company. We just happen to do the CSP for you. And that's where we want to keep it. I mean, truly be that consultancy of the future. So I think that is it. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, you hear our number down here. Thank you guys so much. We'll keep doing these throughout the next several months, and as changes come up, we'll bring them up. But, keep attending these things. Hopefully they were informative for you all today, and appreciate your time.